सही समय है विचारों का मैदान बोल दिखाओ अपनी भाषा में सब है तैयार राइट और रॉन्ग में क्या डिफरेंस है दे दो अपना ज्ञान let everyone around you know what it's time for यही समय है सही समय है विचारों का मैदान बोल दिखाओ अपनी भाषा में सब है तैयार राइट और रॉन्ग में क्या डिफरेंस है दे दो अपना ज्ञान let everyone around you know what it's time for सही समय है
Despite the unprecedented challenges posed by the COVID-19 pandemic, the Indian economy has emerged as one of the best managed global economies. However, claiming it as the best managed global economy requires a critical evaluation. With that, I would like to introduce the topic of today's debate, which is the Indian economy is the best managed global economy even during the pandemic. This debate is going to see three segments. Segment number one is where you will have representatives of both teams making their opening submissions. Segment number two will have the teams putting forth the rebuttals and sir-rebuttals. Segment number three will have the question and answer round with the moderator, followed by the final concluding stances given by the teams. Now let's invite the teams and the debaters to put forth their opening submissions. Over to the team going for the motion.
So a very good evening first of all. To do justice to this topic, let me first highlight the challenges India had in front of it. We are the world's most populous country, and if we sum up the entire population of European nations, still we outnumber them by 50%. That too with a low per capita income, and majority of our population are daily wage earners. So the challenge for India was huge because the factories were at a total shutdown. And not only this, but unemployment rose to 26% from 6%. That means 1/4 of our population was unemployed. And not only that, but our GDP contracted by 24%. That again means 1/4 of our GDP contracted. So you know the challenge was huge. All the major agencies said that it will take at least 12 years for India to get back to pre-COVID levels. But then again, India from time to time has proven that we are the nation who brings the world out of all the challenges when put upon on a leadership position. And that is why our government did a wonderful job, because it completely resonates with the Indians. So the first scheme which was launched was the Pradhan Mantri Gramin Anna Yojana. 1,121 metric tons of ration was distributed, which amounts to staggering 4 lakh crore rupees. And not only this, but a major amount was given to MSMEs, as we were pointing out. 3 lakh crore rupees of debt, that to collateral free. And to support these MSMEs further, there was other thing which was done. NBFC banks were given a liquidity injection of 30,000 crore. 90,000 crore of liquidation injection to DISCOMs to ensure that a developing economy like India doesn't sustain on the shortage of power. Today, let us look at the current indicators. India is developing with a GDP of 7.8% in the first quarter. Major countries like China and USA are merely at 2%. So you see the magnitude which we are developing with. By 2027, we will surpass Japan and Germany and be the third largest economy in the world. That is the magnitude we are dealing with here. And not only this, but today, all the rating agencies like Moody's, like S&P Global have said that for the next 3 years, India will be the fastest developing major economy. For the first time in the decade, we have been included in JP Morgan Global Bond Index, which will give India leverage to take $30 billion worth of loan, that too at mere interest rates. That is the power we Indians are showcasing today. And my dear friends, to you, I'll say that we are the youth which are burdening this factor of going ahead and ensuring that all the things which we are doing for the nation is done rightly. So I say, yes, the time is right. The time is of India, and there can be no other time where we can boom our economy, but it is on your shoulder. Be job givers. Try to be entrepreneurs and then make it happen. Let's make India the great India it has been from centuries, from ancient time. Let's make India great again. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.
you very much, Lokesh, for very passionately putting forth your stance. May I please have the second speaker from For the Motion?
A very warm evening to one and all present here. The topic stands true that India was able to manage the economy in the best way possible. I feel if we look into any country in general, there are three aspects on which they have to create a proper balance. The first being fiscal policies, social growth, as well as the healthcare sector in general. During adversities like COVID-19, people need to unite and bring forward their best foot, and that is what our government did. If I speak specifically about the specific fiscal policies in general, 13,074 crore rupees were allocated just for the Ayushman Bharat scheme, which in turn helped Indians in every way possible. 74 lakh crore rupees were allocated for direct transfer to the citizens who were poor and the laborers who wanted to migrate from one place to another to go back to their hometown. When I talk about the social nature and the healthcare of India during COVID-19, I feel very, very proud that Bharat is the name behind the largest vaccination drive in this entire world. We all should be very proud about that. And not just the largest, but the fastest itself. So, the World Health Organization states that New Zealand is the country that did the best when it comes to managing resources. But what is the population of New Zealand? It is 51.2 lakhs only, whereas India stands firmly at 140 crores. Are we even kidding? So, when I talk about New Zealand, it took around 124 days to administer 10 billion doses of COVID-19 vaccine. Can we all guess how much time did India take? My dear friends, we took 1 day, and that is the reason we are leading in managing COVID-19 pandemics or economy in all ways. We say, जब भारत के लोग सशक्त होंगे, जब मानव जीवन सशक्त होगा, तो अर्थव्यवस्था की जड़ें भी मजबूत होंगी और अर्थव्यवस्था की भुजाएं भी बहुत दूर जाएंगी. And I do not feel sad saying that India is proving itself in all ways possible. Thank you so much, my dear friends.
Thank you very much. The team going for the motion, I think you have very effectively listed down the various measures taken by the government during the pandemic. Let's invite the team going against the motion, the first speaker.
Good evening to one and all present over here. The topic that we've gathered here to discuss today requires a lot of deliberation on all of our parts. My worthy opponents highlighted the fact that we are poised to become the third largest economy in the world. But is that title all that we're looking for? I want you all to take a short trip down the memory lane with me. Let's go back to day one of when the lockdown was imposed. How was the experience for you? Was it smooth? Or was it chaotic, confusing, hassling, mind-boggling, frustrating, and the adjectives just don't end, right? So if that was our experience, how can we lie to ourselves again and again and again of what the experience of the workers of informal sector was? The migrants, the 50% workforce working in the Indian economy, more than 50% in fact, were displaced, had to rush back homes. And what did the managers of our economy do? Provide trains? Is providing trains and providing food security the only thing that was required at that time? I refuse to believe so. I believe job security and social security were one of the most major aspects that were quite awfully neglected at that time. Apart from that, if we compare it with the likes of countries like Germany, yes, their population might be less, thus managing was easier. But when it comes to providing social security, I think a migrant worker, a person who's working away from their home, if a person like that has to dive into their savings that they've saved for their children's marriage, for their children's education, for illnesses, for life and death purposes, just to ensure that they have food in their bellies, is something that we were not able to manage very well. Add on to that the income inequality that we see in this country. During the pandemic, the rich became richer and the poor became poorer. Now let's compare that to countries like Denmark, Norway and New Zealand in fact, that my very well read opponents very nicely highlighted. Yes, again the population was less, but if the social welfare systems are strong enough as they are in the Nordic countries, then I believe our people would have been able to survive better and would have had better hopes. And last but not the least, the elephant in the room that we usually do not like to discuss, the healthcare system, which was so broadly exposed. We saw all the flaws and the weaknesses that we thought were not going to happen. We all say yes, our doctors and nurses work day and night, and all kudos to them. We would not have survived wave 1, 2, 3 and innumerable waves without them. However, I am pretty sure at least one of us in this room would have faced shortages of oxygen tanks, shortages of medicines. In fact, you would have made calls to your relatives saying, "Arey, kahin se oxygen tank mil sakta hai kya? Bahut zyada urgent hai. My mom needs it, my dad needs it, one of my relatives needs it, my friend needs it." Oxygen tank, oxygen. When we look at the healthcare industry, the healthcare economy of this country, we aim to be the pharmacy of the world. But were we really the pharmacy of our own country? We depended so much on one institute of India, the Serum Institute of India, to develop a vaccine for us. But why did we not succeed in importing Pfizer and Moderna vaccines when they were being exported, transported, and changing hands across the globe? So no, I don't believe that India was the best managed global economy during the pandemic. I don't believe we were good, in fact. We were average at best. People sitting in this room, we are the youth of this country. We are the future of this country. And we should certainly expect better than average for our own future. If we are the most populous nation of the country, poised to become the third largest, the second largest, and the largest economy in the world, then we do not deserve average. We should not expect average. Yahi samay hai, sahi samay hai to expect more from the managers of our economy. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurleen. Thank you for highlighting the pragmatic difficulties that were faced during the pandemic. Can we have the next speaker, please?
Good evening, everyone. Today, the topic that we're discussing happens to be the Indian economy is the best managed economy during the pandemic. Well, to that I say, it wasn't definitely the best, but it was reasonably well managed. Now you would be thinking, how can it be reasonably well managed? Well, when the COVID-19 pandemic hit, during the Pandemic Preparedness Index, the report which came out by the Global Health Security Index in 2019, we were ranked 57th. Now that shows the level of preparedness we had. When the pandemic hit, the entire healthcare infrastructure fell through. The social safety nets fell through. You keep on thinking, like a country like India with such a huge populace would definitely give a huge fiscal stimulus to help stimulate and inject it into the economy to make sure that it fares better. India also contributed a 10% GDP into the fiscal stimulus. But guess what? China, which has a higher populace than us during the COVID-19 times, injected 13%. They did so via direct spending. And India did so via credit lines and loan guarantees, which, as we all know, and might be a little controversial to say, was a way for the government to fill their own pockets. Now, moving on to the next point, the e-commerce disruptions, the supply chain disruptions that the economy faced. There was no preparedness for remote work. Everybody saw that work from home culture came up during the pandemic. Well, working from home led to so many more difficulties. The economy was completely demolished. India remains and still will be one of the worst hit countries. Now, as my colleague here said, India aims to be the third largest economy. Well, I say no. And I say no because this happens to be on the graves of 500,000 people who lost their lives due to the shortage of oxygen, due to the shortage of healthcare infrastructure. And I say no because of the 50 million active cases that emerged. You say that this is the best economy? Go on and say that to the migrant workers who walked miles just to reach home because of the lack of infrastructure in the roadway segment. This is where I would like to rest my point, that the Indian economy was not the best managed economy. It will definitely be a reasonably well managed, according to me. Thank you so much.
The motion, thank you for putting forth your opening submissions. Now let's have the second segment of the debate, which is going to be the rebuttals and sir-rebuttals. Can we have the first speaker for his rebuttals?
माल लाया नहीं हूँ वरना रो देता तुम्हारी ये बातें सुन के. We talked about inflation. In the audience, someone talked about inflation. When you are providing vaccines to such a large population, won't you raise petrol prices by a minimum percent? That is what I'm asking you today. Do you know the COVID drive? 95% of Indians got the first dose of vaccine and 88% of our total population was fully vaccinated. And not only this, the surplus vaccination which we produced, we supplied it to African nations, we supplied it to our neighboring countries. Why did we did that? Because we believe in the factor that world is one family. Vasudeva Kutumbakam is something which we truly believe in. That is something which I'd like to say. The second thing is you said about the indexes. Let me tell you the reality today India is facing. The GCI, Global COVID Index, World Bank has ranked India second in terms of recovery from COVID. Second. China is nowhere in the list, brother. And that is because 85% of our economy has already recovered from the pandemic. We are back to pre-COVID levels. And I'm not saying it. He's not saying it. World Bank is saying it based on big data, which you will read about in next year of your trimester, by the way. And not only that, but we talked about supply chain. Okay. So let me just be very sure about the world narrative today, which India has. Supply chain, the COVID pandemic has made world realize that supply chain cannot be totally dependent on China, my friend. India is emerging as a leader of the global south, and the world is looking upon India to be a democratic alliance in the supply chain management. That is what is the reality on ground. So when you will try to manipulate my lovely audience by saying facts about inflation, by saying facts about indexes, let me be very clear that we are developing not just on paper, but we are developing on reality and on ground, and we will continue to develop no matter what people say. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lokesh. And I think the line that you were taking was what our country is also taking, which is to become a developed nation by 2047. Can we have the next speaker, please, for your rebuttals?
First of all, I want to thank my worthy opponent for slightly, but in a very good margin, just obeying with all the things that I said by just sharing his point that, yeah, I reasonably believe that India did well. Thank you so much for saying so. Well, I feel you should have done a better job at saying so that India did considerably better. Now, when my friend is talking about China in general, I feel pathetic. I feel sad in general because China did not even convey a single information regarding COVID-19 in general, and the policies that they uplifted or just took forward to deal with COVID-19 and pandemic in general were inhuman. We are a country who promote things in the best way possible. As my dear colleague was mentioning, that we did give proper COVID-19 vaccines to African countries. We did so when we were at the point of adversity because we believe in Vasudeva Kutumbakam. What about China? They were making hospitals and medical centers in toilets. Are we even kidding about this? So my dear friend, even the indexes that you are talking about, the list doesn't mention China because they never conveyed so. If I talk about the estimates provided by the World Bank in general, World Bank said that in the first 21 days that are stipulated for just a proper rebuttal, 32,000 crore was the estimated fall that had to happen for India in general. You know, where did we stand? We stood at a whooping low 12,000 crore, which is way more less than what was expected of us. So I again feel just proud for saying so that people are just degenerating things because we did exceptionally well. When I talk about the social fiscal deficit, Sensex and Nifty just went through the best boon of all time in their history on 25th of March 2020, which was the best boon forever. My worthy opponents did not mention that. And when we talk about countries like New Zealand, we talk about Sweden countries, they also fall in the happiness index. India does not fall in that. I think they have just forgot a very difference or distinction between a developing country and a developed country. Because my dear friend, today you standing here, you can just ignore the fact of population, but population is a thing. We have a stipulated amount of land with us, and still, if we are able to provide facilities to every person, if we are able to just surpass things and directly transfer the funds to all bank accounts, it is a thing and we should not ignore that. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. I am sure now the team going against the motion is itching to make their points and make the sir rebuttal. Can we have the first speaker on, please?
My very well-read and worthy opponents forgot to read a few facts. You see, a country's GDP, the social indexes, the indices, everything is a good highlight and a good measure of an economy's progress. However, my worthy opponent says that in order to make sure that the vaccinations were being made available, a few increases here and there in our daily needs was reasonably justified, as you just said. But I would like to point out to the fact, where are the government's reserves being employed at this point of time? Towards the Ambanis and the Adanis? Or, even if the prices were raised, were the demands being met properly at that time? I don't think so. More than 5,000 deaths every single day during the first wave. How are they justified? Even after the prices being raised? Even after inflation being raised a little bit, or even after inflation being controlled a little bit, that's not justified in any manner. And out of those 5,000 deaths every single day, minimum 5,000 deaths every single day, more than 30% of those deaths were happening because of lack of accessibility to medical facilities. People did not have access to beds, oxygen tanks, as I just said. And vaccination rollout, yes, that did happen, but very, very delayed. So, I do not agree with this point that India was even a good managed economy during that time. I believe we could have been much, much better than we were, and than what we were actually capable of. Thank you.
Thank you, Gurleen. Can we have the second speaker for the final sir rebuttals?
First of all, I'd just like to say, we'll definitely study big data analytics next year, as said by Lokesh Bhaiya. But currently, the statement we got was the Indian economy was the best managed economy even during the pandemic. I would like to stress specifically upon the word during. All the facts and figures that I quoted before you were of the pandemic. What happened during the pandemic, which was supposed to be the topic of our discussion. My dear colleagues here moved the discussion entirely towards the recovery that the Indian economy had. Guess what? The GDP contracted even during that time by around 7%, which is not a meager sum. Then we go on to the next point which he raised, which was the petrol prices were increased slightly. Just a normal question to every single bike rider or a car rider here, is 50 rupees normal? You had petrol prices getting raised from rupees 50 up to rupees 100 per litre. Do you understand the gravity of what actually happened here? Now, as he said, the indexes here rate India as the second or the third country in the global COVID index. Well, the index I talked about was the Global Health Security Index, which showed how unprepared India was. And India still is unprepared for the pandemics to come. Now, this is where I'd like to rest my point, that India was not even a well-managed, but a reasonably well-managed economy. But it wasn't so good that it might be considered the best global economy during the pandemic. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Now we move to the final segment of the debate, which is going to be the question and answer with the moderator, followed by the final concluding stance. Can we have the first speaker for the question by the moderator? So Lokesh, your question is as follows. While India's economy showed resilience, it still experienced a contraction, which even your opponent team was referring to, during the pandemic, especially for the MSMEs. Was the government effectively able to save the MSMEs of India? What's your response?
So, well, up on the 20 trillion rupees package which was introduced for COVID, 4 lakh crore rupees was dedicated to collateral-free loan to these MSMEs. Not just that, 30,000 crore to NBFCs, which in turn will invest in these MSMEs. Why was that? To create a liquidity pool in the market to ensure that our economy doesn't run out of the liquidity in the market. And that is why we are not in recession currently. That is the point I would like to make. And also, that the MSMEs are the driving bone of Indian economy and they contribute to 30% of our GDP. They create ample amounts of jobs. Companies like boAt, they create ample amounts of jobs for the economy and they are the driving factors, and government left no stone unturned in ensuring that these entities are left to the justice. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lokesh. Let's have the team going against the motion. The first speaker taking the question. So, Gurleen, your question is as follows. Don't you think there was a silver lining in terms of India's digital economy, which saw significant growth during the pandemic? What's your response to that?
We may not have been able to manage ourselves as an economy as a whole. However, the digital economy, I would believe, had a silver lining. When it comes to consumers, such as us, we can start from there. People who had good disposable income shopped more. I'm pretty sure a lot of us who were safe at home started doing a lot of shopping at our homes as well, right? Apart from that, I believe the idea of ONDC was also birthed during the pandemic. I believe ideas such as ONDC, apart from the digitization of payments and the UPI, is a great effort towards the flourishing digital economy of our nation. And these two ideas, the collaboration of them, the formation and the improvements that have happened over the years, took place during the pandemic years. So yes, there was a silver lining, and if we continue our efforts the way we did in empowering our digital economy, we would be able to manage our economy as a whole as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Gurleen. Audience, what's your vote? Question was answered well? Wonderful. So let's have the final concluding stance from both the teams. First, the team going for the motion, the final word.
So today we discussed the in and outs of Indian economy. Was this the best managed economy at the global stage? I'd like to talk directly to you when I'm making my closing statements. I just want to appeal to you all that why we were out of pandemic was because of trust in the government which we show. While other Western nations were resilient in applying vaccines, we were ready to, on one word of our Prime Minister, we were ready to celebrate our frontline workers. That is what the commitment we as a society have shown to the whole nation and to the government. And that is what is resonating in the new India, the new age. I would once again request you all, please, please, please try to ride on this boom which the Indian economy is facing, and all of you will be very, 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 very helping in this economy and will ensure that India remains great forever and forever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The team going for the motion. Let's get the final word from the team going against the motion before we close today's debate.
My closing statements for today's debate would definitely start with the very famous slogan that generated out of our country when the COVID-19 pandemic struck. It was "Go Corona, Corona Go." Now, when I say that, all our economy made us do was bang thalis against each other and keep the morale high. The morale high for what? The constant deaths occurring around us, the infrastructure that failed, the absolutely unequitable distribution of vaccines that took place. Now, to rest my point, I would just like to say that getting to the point of the third largest economy is no less of a feat, and it is a very great very great accomplishment for a country. But I would just like to say that getting to do so on the graves of 500 people, 500,000 people who died, would not be a very big statement. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. So, audience, what do you think it is? How many of you think that the team going for the motion made good points? I think we can have a little bit more noise also, maybe. Need not be so silent. Okay, and for the team going against the motion. Wow, okay, let's see. I think our judge here has got a Herculean task up her sleeve. So with that, the debate comes to an end. I hope you all enjoyed it. And now Mr. Aman Gupta is here already. So he's going to be escorted upstairs very quickly. And that's the segment that all of you have been waiting for, which is going to be the exclusive interaction with the boatman himself. Make sure you guys have your questions ready, because we're going to be taking ample questions from the audience, and he would actually love to hear the students' questions. All right? So thank you very much, and we're going to see you in the other segment of the program. So as we start, I think my first question to you would be, we've seen this comprehensive presentation on the impact that's been made by the Make in India movement. In your capacity as a leading entrepreneur, as well as your capacity of being a judge on the very popular show Shark Tank India, where you've seen multiple startup ventures and interacted with multiple startup entrepreneurs, how is the concept of Make in India helping new startups or businesses today?
When we were starting up, entrepreneurship and founders were not like looked up to. ठीक है? We were not, even doing business was looked at negatively, right? It was not supposed to be as it is now. If you look at 2023, now entrepreneurship is being celebrated. Entrepreneurs are being celebrated. I think it's for us. I have seen in last 6-7 years a complete change on how startups, founders, and entrepreneurship is being looked at. पहले तो I don't think पहले लोगों को entrepreneurship की spelling भी आती थी, मुझे भी नहीं आती थी ठीक से, right? So और जब हमने start किया ना, तो even my mother-in-law who's also in Greater Noida, right? My in-laws are here. So my mother-in-law also said कि यार why are you leaving? I was doing very well. तो ये था कि यार अपना काम क्यों छोड़ रहे हो? Why are you starting up when you are अपना काम क्यों शुरू कर रहे हो? अच्छा वाला तुम्हारी नौकरी है, इतना अच्छे पैसे मिल रहे हैं, तो छोड़ने का क्या point, right? So business was not like as good, but look at it today. There are so many startups everywhere you go. आप कहीं भी किसी college में चले जाओ. In fact, even in your college, I was talking to your professor and he was saying कि यहाँ पे Atal Innovation Mission है. Your college is like one of the top 5 colleges in that, right? This college is. So look at entrepreneurship. आप किसी cafe चले जाओ, किसी restaurant चले जाओ. आजकल लोग टेबल पे बैठे होते हैं और आपस में लोग ये सोच रहे होते हैं कि नया क्या venture start करना है, right? And it's couldn't have been better time to start up than now in India, right? So I tell everybody who's planning to start up that do it before anybody else does, because I think there are a lot of people who are talking about starting up everywhere you go. किसी भी जगह चले जाओ तो भाई जिससे पहले कोई और शुरू करे, क्योंकि आइडिया ऐसा नहीं है कि आप ही के पास आता है, आइडिया सबके पास आता है. It's also about taking the plunge and getting into the startup world as soon as possible. So for me, one thing which I would say is do that today. Second, for us, when we started, we were called as even Indian brands for that reason were not very acceptable. Okay? I had to compete with Chinese, Japanese, German brands, US brands when we were starting in India. India में Indian brands की इतनी respect नहीं होती थी जितना फिरंगी brands की होती थी. तो पहले तो we fought a war with the people that boss with the other brands that boss Indian brands can also produce good quality. Indian brands can also be accepted. And the best part was consumers were changing. अब consumer खुद Indian brands की तरफ जाने लगा 6 साल पहले. 2 साल पहले एक और revolution आया इंडिया में, where Make in India with the schemes, with the push of the government, now consumers themselves keep asking कि boss आपका brand तो Indian है लेकिन आपके products तो China में बनते हैं. Consumer खुद इतना अच्छा एक अंदर से इतनी अच्छी feeling आती है कि now consumers are themselves also asking कि यार हमें Make in India brand चाहिए, right? So we had to go into that path also. Second, if you look at manufacturing, लोग ना डरते थे. मुझे बहुत डर लगता था मैन्युफैक्चरिंग से यार कि लेबर को कैसे संभालना पड़ेगा, क्या होगा, कैसे संभालेंगे, डर लगता था. वो होते थे ना लेबर लॉस भी were not like as conducive कि क्या हो जाएगा. अभी तो now people like us, entrepreneurs like us are also dreaming कि कैसे हम how can we go to the next level. मैं बताता हूँ मैंने जिंदगी में कभी नहीं सोचा कि we as boat will will be loved so much that now we are world's second largest wearable brand. Second largest.
Wow. I think a lot of us sitting here can say we are all proud boat owners.
Yeah. जो नहीं है वो please बाहर चले जाना. Right? मैं मतलब in 6 years, right? And I always say that in India today we all should dream big, right? I was 3 years back, I was sitting as one of you, right? And in 3 years, मैं वहां से यहाँ आ सकता हूँ तो आप में से कोई भी यहाँ वहां से यहाँ आ सकता है. And that is the potential which India has for all budding entrepreneurs.
Thank you very much. I think काफी इंटरेस्टिंग एंगल्स और काफी इंटरेस्टिंग चीजों का हमने बात की है, जैसे कि द चेंजिंग माइंडसेट. इनफैक्ट इफ वी रिवाइंड बैक अ कपल ऑफ इयर्स, वी हैव डॉक्टर चतुर्वेदी जी सिटिंग हियर विद अस. पहले कोई बिजनेस चालू करने जाता था, सम फर्स्ट टाइम फर्स्ट जनरेशन बिजनेस वाला, तो द ऑब्जेक्टिव कि अच्छा दुकान लगा रहे हो आप. So I mean, there's a huge, gravitational shift that we have gone through. But I would like to personally know from you, Amanji. I mean, you're an accomplished chartered accountant. Like you said, you were doing these top jobs in sales and marketing in some of the leading companies globally as well as in India. What was your personal motivation? How did you decide to take the plunge?
From a chartered accountancy to this, right?
Yes, and to actually become an entrepreneur.
So I was, have you seen Three Idiots?
हाँ जी, सबने देखा.
तो उसमें वो बोलता है कि उसके मतलब उसके फादर डिसाइड करते थे, राइट? तो एक टाइम पे कि क्या बनना है, राइट? तो मेरे साथ भी यही हुआ था. वो बोलता है ना, इंजीनियर बनेगा बेटा, डॉक्टर बनेगा, सीए बनेगा. So it was more about my father wanted me to be a CA, and that's why I became a CA. And I think it always helps कि एक बारी CA जब मैंने करी, so it's not an easy course, tough course है, right? और CA में हमारे को ना एक टाइम होता था जब मैं 18 घंटे दिन में पढ़ता था, राइट? ये CA में क्या होता है, सुबह तुम्हें क्लासेस जाना पड़ता है और फिर पूरा दिन का इंटर्नशिप होती है और फिर शाम को क्लासेस होती है, राइट? तो इट्स अ स्ट्रेसफुल कोर्स, राइट? बट CA करने से ना बहुत चीजें सीखने को मिल जाती है. पहला तो टाइम मैनेजमेंट इज गुड एंड आई लर्न दैट. सेकंड, आई थिंक CA बन के ROI मैनेजमेंट आ जाती है, राइट? So if you look at our company, we are a profitable company, right? But many companies are not. मतलब our DNA is profitable. Maybe हम एक साल loss करें, but ROI management, time management. I think as an education, I always say कि यार पढ़ाई करना, आप MBA कर रहे हैं. You guys are doing your MBA or PhD courses, right? तो इसमें भी क्या होता है कि आपको ओवरनाइट बोल देते हैं कि 2 दिन में ये केस स्टडी पढ़नी है, ये ग्रुप्स बनाने हैं, फिर आपको सबमिट करना है, फिर आपको इंटर्नशिप करनी है. So I think all these courses helps one become much better. I think education helped me there. And for me, I always loved gadgets. तो मेरे को gadgets बड़े पसंद है. तो मैंने ऐसे ही JBL में अप्लाई किया. JBL is another supplier. They also make some decent products. Don't buy them. But yeah. So I learned a lot from them, and then I started both.
Wonderful. So Amanji, in what ways is boat contributing today to the Make in India initiative, and what is your vision for the company's role in the country's electronics manufacturing sector? As you know, we are gearing up now to become the 3rd largest economy in the world. So how is boat going to be contributing to this journey?
Boss, मैं ये कह रहा हूँ कि मैं ना मतलब मैंने सोचा नहीं था फ्रैंकली कि हम लोग इंडिया में बनाएंगे, करेक्ट? क्योंकि इंडिया में बनाना बड़ा मुश्किल होता था. But there were so many schemes, like we got there was a scheme called production limb incentive, PLI. उससे पहले ना हमारे यहाँ क्या होता है, फेज मैन्युफैक्चरिंग प्रोसेस. इंडिया में बनाना ना इजी नहीं है. मतलब इंडिया में बनाना बहुत टफ था. हमारी ना गवर्नमेंट ने बहुत सपोर्ट करी. इट वाज द फर्स्ट टाइम दैट गवर्नमेंट डायरेक्टली स्टार्टेड टॉकिंग टू अस कि बॉस तुम लोग इंडिया में बनाओ, राइट? हमने बोला सर बहुत महंगा है, हम लोग अनकॉम्पिटिटिव हो जाएंगे, बाकी ब्रांड्स जो बाहर से ला रहे हैं वो सस्ते होंगे. तो बोला नहीं, हम आपको सपोर्ट करेंगे, स्टार्ट मेकिंग इन इंडिया. आई विल टेल यू आवर जर्नी. वी स्टार्टेड 3 years back. We made 0% made in India, 0, right? 2023, 70% of our products are now made in India. 70%.
Truly amazing.
and it is and we are, you know, we are on the path to make 80 to 85% made in India, right? And this is only because there is a lot of support which the government has given us. There is a lot of I would say even the smaller parts, like if you look at how semiconductors are now being made in India, right? There was a company called Micron which has started their own factory 3 days back in India. So इंडिया में ना, जैसे जब भी मारुति भी जब स्टार्ट हुई थी ना, तो आपको याद है कोई पंजाब में कोई एक वो बनाता था, कोई स्टेयरिंग की फैक्ट्री होती थी, किसी की ब्रेक की फैक्ट्री होती थी, तो ऐसे ना छोटी छोटी फैक्ट्रीज बनी थी. तो हमारे यहाँ भी ऐसा ही है कि आई ऑलवेज से, यू नो, रोम वाज नॉट बिल्ट इन अ डे, इंडिया विल नॉट मेक इन अ डे, इंडिया इज इन दैट path to make in India. And धीरे धीरे ये फैक्ट्रीज आ रही हैं, कंपोनेंट प्लेयर्स आ रहे हैं, सेमीकंडक्टर प्लेयर्स आ रहे हैं, तो धीरे धीरे इंडिया भी, you know, it will be a global power in manufacturing. I think, what do you call it, the China plus one strategy, and India is the best poised to get that to take that opportunity. And I think no better time than now to start making in India.
I think, like we say, यही समय है, सही समय है, यही इंडिया का समय है. So, you know, one of the things that you spoke about was also the ease of doing business, right? And a lot of people say that that has been one of the contributing factors, that in a record time of 7 years, we have become the third largest, so to say, startup capital of the world. If you could tell us, you know, practically, what have been, you know, the reforms that you have seen actually have benefited businesses like yours, and have actually contributed this exponential growth that we have seen in the startups in the country. जैसे presentation में देखा, right from 350 we have made the jump to 1 lakh plus. So what has this journey been like?
I think India में अगर, if I talk about electronic manufacturing, you know, there is a $300 billion electronic manufacturing target India has taken, and we are on the path to do that, right? You know, India is now the second largest mobile manufacturer in the world. Imagine. And 4 years, 5 years back, we didn't even do anything.
इस पे थोड़ी ज्यादा तालियां बनती हैं. All of us are using mobile phones here.
मतलब इतनी अच्छी, मतलब अंदर से यार, पता है, अंदर से अच्छा लगता है जब अभी जो परसों लॉन्च हुआ iPhone 15, राइट? और दैट iPhone 15 is now made in India and available at the same time when it is available. पहले होता था 2-2 महीने बाद आ रहा है इंडिया में, you know, वेटिंग लिस्ट चल रही है, लोग दुबई से या कहीं से ला रहे हैं, राइट? अभी सेम टाइम पे इंडिया में मिल रहा है, जिस टाइम पे ग्लोबली मिल रहा है, and that product is also made in India. What else do you need, yaar? मतलब it's something which is, you know, which you know, some people say that, you know, you've dreamt about it. I didn't even dream about this India, where Indians will have proud feeling to buy Indian brands. Indians will be proud to buy made in India products. Like it's I think a surreal times where, you know, where we are feeling Indian, right? It's couldn't have been better.
I think you're absolutely right that now there's been a tectonic shift in the mindset that, you know, now we're so proud of the fact, and we're proud to buy, you know, products from a country. Gone are the days when we were always looking out for those foreign products. Now we proudly say that we want to invest in Make in India and Made in India products. While we're talking about surreal times, how can I not ask you about your experience? Very recently, for our students, dear students, I'm sure you would have all seen this in the national dailies. Aman ji, sitting right here, had the opportunity of joining the Honorable Prime Minister in a delegation that went to Paris, France, for the Indo-French CEO forums. We would love to hear about that experience from you. How was it to interact with him, and what was that experience like?
I think you know, it was a surreal moment, right? You know, I never you know, हम लोगों को याद होता था जब normally जब भी ऐसे Prime Minister जी के trips होते हैं, तो there are, you know, you can count and say कि यार ये businessmen होंगे जो normally India के businessmen हैं, right? और अब हमारे ऐसे स्टार्टअप फाउंडर्स को भी आर गेटिंग इनविटेशन, राइट? इससे अच्छा टाइम क्या होगा कि हमारे को भी उस, मेरे को मतलब सेकंड और थर्ड जनरेशन एंटरप्रेन्योर्स होते थे, फैमिली बिजनेसमैन होते थे जो जाते थे, राइट? आप ये सोचो कि मैं जब वहां गया ना, इट हैज ओपन्ड द ड्रीम्स फॉर मिलियंस ऑफ इंडियंस कि यार अगर अमन जा सकता है तो हम भी जा सकते हैं, राइट? क्योंकि वहां पे जाके जब वो टेबल पे बैठा हूँ तो देयर वाज अ बिजनेस डेलीगेशन, पूरा बिजनेस डेलीगेशन बैठा है. There are Airbus CEO, and there were a lot of these French companies, and Indian companies over there, and they were all talking. Some were saying that I have 6 factories in Europe. Somebody was like, my business is there for 6 decades. And there was me, who's a startup founder, whose company is only 6 years old, right? And as a founder, I felt, and I was sitting there and I felt that, boss, ये, क्या बोलते हैं, it's India's time has come, and that's what I wrote about in my Instagram and LinkedIn post, that अब ये टाइम आ गया है कि, मतलब हमें याद है, मैं वहां गया ना, जब हमें याद है कि हम लोग जब फ्रेंच ब्रांड्स होते हैं ना, इट्स वेरी पॉपुलर इन इंडिया, राइट? तो मैंने वहां पे जब स्पीच दी तो मैंने यही बोला कि एज इंडियंस वी लव फ्रेंच ब्रांड्स. नाउ आई रिप्रेजेंट द न्यू इंडिया. I represent the young India, which is very aspirational. I represent an India which wants to take over the world, take on the world, right? I represent an India where I feel that we want French people to start loving Indian brands also, right? Why can't it be possible? मतलब मेरा तो इतना मन करता है कि जैसे जब एप्पल फोन आता है तो एप्पल के दुकानों के बाहर लाइन लगती है, राइट? इंडियंस लगाते हैं. ऐसा भी टाइम आना चाहिए कि हम बाहर जाए और बोट के शॉप्स के बाहर लाइन लगी हो, राइट? और फिरंगी लाइन में लगे हो, राइट? कि so I would say that Indians have now lately Indians have started dreaming big, right? I remember first, as I said, our brand was made in India, right? Then with the help of government, now we are making in India. And now I remember Modi ji once said, let's make in India for the world, right? India कभी ये नहीं सोचती थी कि हम क्यों नहीं ग्लोबली बना सकते, राइट? अगर आप, मैं तो सिंपल कहता हूँ कि अगर आप स्टारबक्स को देखो, स्टारबक्स है क्या? एक चाय की दुकान ही तो है, राइट? और but they used to think global, they used to think big, and now look at them, that they are like, in India also they are doing well. If you look at Walmart क्या है? बनिए की दुकान, right? But they have thought big, right? They used to think global, and now they're doing so well in India also, right? So why can't we? So I think that limitation is getting over, that India नहीं कर सकती. अगर आप आज देखो, जैसे G20 इवेंट हुआ, और इंडिया की जो, मतलब जब मैं पेरिस भी गया, G20 इवेंट भी देखो, और वहां पे जब आप देखोगे ना कि फर्स्ट टाइम in 50 years there was a dinner hosted by the French government for Prime Minister Modi, right? In this one, the Louvre. First time after 50 years. Last was British Queen. After that, it was our Prime Minister. Imagine. Imagine the respect India has now globally, right? So all these efforts which the government is making is helping entrepreneurs and startups like us go beyond, think broad, think beyond India, and make for the world.
Absolutely. I think the example that Amanji gave in the end is a true testament to the fact of, our rising global stature. And obviously, we all witnessed it right here with the G20. Did you all not feel proud during the G20? Absolutely. I think Amanji ne काफी interesting points बोले कि जैसे this is aspirational India. Each one of you sitting here, carries a big dream. All of us are now no longer just thinking about that roti, kapda, or makan. We're actually thinking beyond. Wanting to do something impactful, bring a change to the world. And like he said very correctly, that we want that our country should now take over and we should be able to reclaim our place again as a leading superpower. Having said that, so many of the students sitting here also must have entrepreneurial ideas. उनके लिए आपकी क्या एडवाइस है?
I think मेरे को लगता है कि जब अगर स्टार्ट करना है तो बॉस सबसे पहली चीज इंपॉर्टेंट होती है कि बी रेडी टू हसल, राइट? यू हैव टू हसल हार्ड. इट्स नॉट इजी. लगता है इजी है, बट हमने भी, मतलब सबने बहुत पापड़ पेले एज एंटरप्रेन्योर्स. यू हैव टू गो थ्रू द ग्राइंड. सेकंड, क्या होता है ना, कभी कभी एंटरप्रेन्योर्स जब अच्छा करने लगते हैं स्टेज 2 में, वो ना दे स्टार्ट एक्टिंग लाइक गॉड्स, राइट? आई थिंक staying humble is one of the virtues which I have, which I feel that all entrepreneurs should have as one of the traits. So, and third most important was ROI का ध्यान रखना. वो दिन चले गए जब startups में आज बाइजूस का भी आया था that they are removing 4,000 people, right? वो दिन चले गए कि जब आप फ्री में पैसा मिल रहा था और कुछ भी हो रहा था, यूनिकॉर्न वगैरह बन रहे थे. You know, I still find unicorn, you know, बोलते हैं ना mythical creature है, right? It's still not logical. तो मुझे लगता है कि it's gone are those days where free money was available for startups. Now start thinking profitability, and that is that. And the DNA of everybody and every entrepreneur who's starting up is to look at ROI-driven, sustainable growth.
Thank you very much. अब मेरे questions तो खत्म नहीं होंगे, but I have to give the students a chance who have been itching to ask a lot of their own questions. Yes, can we have the first question? पहले mic पहुंच जाए, please. Okay, quite a few questions, Aman ji.
How does one soar high while remaining grounded? How do you grow? How do you scale up your business while staying true to your mission statement, your core values? How does one achieve that?
मतलब
मतलब कि जैसे
या हिंदी में पूछ.
मतलब जैसे आप अपने बिजनेस को बढ़ाते हो, जैसे आप आगे बढ़ते हो, आपने जो पहले सोचा था कि हाँ ये अपनी वैल्यू है, ये हम रखते हैं अपने साथ यहाँ पे, वो सब आप कैसे मेंटेन करते हो?
यार पता है जब ग्रो करते हैं ना लाइफ में तो बहुत बारी ऐसा आता है कि यू नो देयर आर सो मेनी पीपल हु स्टार्ट कमिंग इनटू द कंपनी, देयर आर सो मेनी थिंग्स व्हिच स्टार्ट हैपनिंग, बट इफ यू डोंट स्टे ट्रू टू what you feel like, right? If you don't stay true, then the world will see you through, right? आपका ना अभी क्या हो गया कि कंज्यूमर को ना पहले आप यू नो क्या बोलते हैं, आप कुछ भी बोल के कुछ भी बेच सकते थे. अभी क्या है, it's everybody is talking to each other, every consumer is on social media, every consumer is, you know, writing reviews. So like if you are true to yourself, you will do well, right? If you start acting, if you start trying to cheat the consumer, they will read through you, and they will buy somebody else, or they will not you know, prefer your products over the others. So being true to your values is, I think, most important. सबसे मतलब हमने भी अपने ऑफिस में हमारा एक होता है जुगाड़ू, डिसरप्टर, हसलर. तो ऐसे हमारी 3-4 वैल्यूज हमने लिखी हुई हैं, और जब कोई आता है उसको मतलब आते जाते दिखता रहता है, इतनी बार दिखता है उसे कि उसको भी रट जाता है, तो हम उसे मिस नहीं होने देते. सो इट्स वेरी क्रिटिकल टू स्टे ट्रू टू योर वैल्यूज मैन.
सबसे पहले तो बहुत स्वागत आपका बिमटेक में. I just copied this from your Instagram post. My name is Gargi Devedi, and I have a different kind of question. So I want to ask, how should any student stay consistent after facing a lot of failures in one way or the other?
गुड क्वेश्चन. एंड जिनको नहीं पता तो ये पता क्या था, ये ना ऋषि सुनाक G20 के लिए इंडिया आए थे. अब तो हम प्राइम मिनिस्टर भी एक्सपोर्ट करते हैं. द प्राइम ऋषि सुनाक जब इंडिया आए थे तो उन्होंने बोट का हेडफोन पहना हुआ था. तो उनकी एक पोस्ट थी जिसमें बाय चांस मुझे बोट का हेडफोन दिख गया, तो वो फोटो लेके मैंने अपने इंस्टा पे डाला था, आपका बहुत स्वागत है ऐसा करके. तो उससे आया था ये, राइट? तो यार मेरा एक सिंपल टेक है इसके ऊपर कि फेल तो होना बनता है, राइट? थोड़ा सा, राइट? और अगर आप जैसे वो टॉप के जो सबसे फर्स्ट आते हैं, सेकंड आते हैं ना, उनकी जर्नी देखो और बाकी लोगों की देखो, तो जो बाकी लोग होंगे ना उन्होंने ज्यादा अच्छा करा होगा रादर देन फर्स्ट और सेकंड जो आए होते हैं, राइट? अगर आप मेरा देखो तो अगर आप मेरा एग्जांपल देखो तो मैं स्कूल में हमारे ना हेड बॉय होता था. मैं नहीं था, मतलब हमारे स्कूल में हेड बॉय होता था, और हमारे स्कूल में फिर हाउस कैप्टन होते थे, प्रीफेक्ट होते थे. मेरे को तो आज तक क्लास मॉनिटर भी नहीं बनाया, राइट? मैं तो कहता हूँ कि और इवन इन आवर कंपनी, इवन इन माय लाइफ, दिस इज नॉट माय फर्स्ट स्टार्टअप. ये मेरी 5वीं स्टार्टअप है. पहली 4 फेल हो गई, राइट? बट लोगों को फेलियर से ज्यादा मेरा एक सक्सेस याद है. मैं तो कह रहा हूँ 10 फेलियर भी हो जाए तो चलेगा, एक सक्सेस होना जरूरी है लाइफ में. बाकी फेलियर सब भूल जाते हैं, लोग सक्सेस की बातें करेंगे, राइट? और फेलियर बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. मैं तो कह रहा हूँ फेल होना जब तक जरूरी होता है, क्योंकि जब तक फेल नहीं होते ना तब तक सक्सेस की वैल्यू नहीं आती, राइट? और जितना मेरे को फेलियर ने सिखाया ना उतना मेरे बिजनेस स्कूल ने भी नहीं सिखाया. मैं तो हमेशा यही कहता हूँ कि try, fail, because the best learning is from failures rather than success.
Okay, one last question before we close the session. Last question.
हेलो मिस्टर अमन
Hello.
हम लोग अटल इंक्यूबेशन सेंटर बिमटेक से है
Okay.
और आए दिन हम लोग कई सारे स्टार्टअप्स को इवेलुएट करते रहते हैं और कई सारे न्यू न्यू आइडियाज को हम लोग इवेलुएट करते रहते हैं आपके बेस्ड ऑन योर एक्सपीरियंस आपने कई सारे स्टार्टअप्स को देखा भी है आपको क्या लगता है कि नेक्स्ट इंडस्ट्री कौन सी होगी जहां से हम लोग मैक्सिमम स्टार्टअप आइडियाज देखेंगे और जो नेक्स्ट इकोनॉमी ड्राइव करेगी और डिस्ट्रप्शन देखने मिलेगा
मैं नहीं बताऊंगा. अच्छा जी. तो आई थिंक यार मेरे को लगता है ये आर्टिफिशियल इंटेलिजेंस इज गोइंग टू बी बिग. हेल्थ टेक इज आल्सो गोइंग टू बी बिग बिकॉज अभी क्या था ना, पहले हेल्थ पे इतना फोकस था नहीं इंडियंस का. अब आई थिंक पीपल वांट टू बी मोर हेल्दी एंड इफ यू लुक एट health tech, that's an emerging sector. And AI also, I think it will, there are so many things which are happening mid journey mein or Adobe ke sath bhi. So I think that is one area where there was another term I learned. It's called prompt engineer. Have you guys heard of it? Right, people are now becoming prompt engineers, and if you ask 1 year back, people didn't know what prompt engineer term meant. Right, electronic engineer, computer engineer suna tha. Now it's a prompt engineer, which is also becoming like. So I think AI will be a big thing, and health tech, to answer your question.
With that, we will have to come to an end on the question and answer. What a wonderful session it has been. I think I won't be wrong in saying this. All of us stand enriched, inspired, and I hope कि 50% से at least 75 to 80% अब सोच रहे हैं कि भाई हमें भी कुछ बनाना है, खुद का बनाना है, कुछ करना है, देश को आगे लेके जाना है. I'm very happy to share that the team that went for the motion has won the debate.
सही समय है